Hey everyone, have you ever stopped and thought about how harsh that word loser is?
Yeah.
We use it so casually, but it's got this heavy weight to it. Today we're taking a deep dive into that, but with a bit of a philosophical twist.
Oh, interesting. What kind of twist?
We're looking at it through the lens of Taoism, actually.
Taoism. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Right. This article, Is It Truly Bad to Be a Loser, is our guide, and it's already got me questioning a lot of things.
Well, then let's jump in.
Right.
What's this article saying about being a loser?
One of the first things it points out is how we've turned loser into something way bigger than just losing a game.
I could see that.
Like it's become this judgment on your whole value as a person.
Almost like if you're not chasing after success all the time,
Yeah.
you're somehow failing at life.
Exactly. The article even talks about people like these two guys named Yost and Iris who actually reject that whole ambition thing. And it's weird, but it's almost seen as a bad thing about them. That's so true. It's like society is telling us, you got to be ambitious, you got to be striving for more. If you're not on that treadmill, you're letting everyone down.
Yeah. It's kind of suffocating, isn't it? But that's where Taoism comes in, and it offers, I think, a really refreshing alternative to all that pressure.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does Taoism approach this whole success thing?
Well, one of the things it does is it encourages us to take a step back and ask, is all this striving actually making you happy? It makes you think.
Yeah, it
It
does.
highlights how chasing after wealth and fame and reputation, like Yang-Chu, this Taoist philosopher, talked
Mhm.
about, can actually block you from finding real happiness.
I see what you mean. Like, even if you do reach those goals, what's the cost? Stress, burnout, you might be sacrificing relationships.
Totally.
And Taoism seems to be all about finding that balance, finding that inner peace that gets lost when you're always trying to get to the top.
Right. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly. But there's another really interesting angle that Taoism brings in, and it's all about destiny. Oh, yeah. I remember the article mentioned a story from this Taoist text called Lieh-tzu, right? Where effort and destiny have this whole debate about what makes people successful.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. It makes you think about what you can actually control in life.
So remind me, how does that story go?
Well, on one side, you have effort,
Yeah.
right? He's all about hard work, perseverance, putting in the time.
Okay, makes sense.
Then destiny comes in and says, hold on a second. There's a whole lot that you just can't control. Luck, circumstances, random chance, things like that. Those things can play an even bigger role than how hard you work.
Wow. When you put it like that, it does make you think about things a bit differently.
Right. It's a total mind shift. Like, think about the world of, let's say, online content creation. You see all these people putting in a ton of effort. They're doing everything right, but they never really hit it big.
I know exactly what you mean.
Then, boom, you have others who become famous overnight, seemingly with hardly any effort.
Yeah, that's wild when you see that.
It just shows that success, or what we consider success, isn't always a direct result of how hard you try.
So what does that mean for us then? Are we just supposed to give up and let fate decide everything?
Taoism isn't saying we should become passive and just let life happen. It's more about recognizing that we can't control everything, and that's okay. Finding a sense of peace in that. It's about pursuing what we want, but without getting overly attached to the result.
Oh, I see what you mean. So it's more about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Taoism teaches us that true worth isn't found in these external things, like
Yeah.
achievements and accolades. It's about aligning yourself with the Tao, finding that inner peace, living authentically. It's about realizing that those social hierarchies and how society measures success are often totally arbitrary, and they can lead to a lot of unnecessary suffering.
That makes me think of another story from the article about these two friends, one rich and one poor. The rich guy thinks he's better because he's got all this wealth, but then this wise sage comes along and totally flips the script.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
He basically says, hey, who decided that money equals worth?
Yeah. He's pointing out that those are societal constructs, not some universal truth. These are just stories we've been told, and a lot of times they don't serve us.
He's like, don't buy into the hype. Wealth, fame, status, those things don't automatically make you a better person. And that connects to so many things we see today, like that whole low-value male thing that people talk about.
Oh, absolutely. That's a perfect example of how society tries to put people in boxes based on these external often superficial, things.
Yeah.
It's reducing someone's entire worth to their money, looks, and how popular they are, which are all fleeting and don't actually determine someone's true value.
So Taoism is basically offering us a way out of that trap, right? A way to see ourselves beyond those limiting definitions that society throws at us.
Exactly. It encourages us to detach from those shallow measures of worth and understand that true value comes from within. It's about accepting yourself, not trying to meet some external standard that someone else made up.
That's a powerful message. But I do have to ask, what about the real world consequences of this obsession with success that we have? Because it's not just about hurt feelings, right? I remember the article mentioning some pretty serious impacts.
You're right. That constant pressure to achieve, to be successful, it can really damage our well-being. The burnout, the stress, the anxiety, all of it, it can be incredibly damaging to our physical and mental health.
It's like we're on this hamster wheel and we're terrified to stop because we think we'll fall behind.
And, the worst part is that it creates this huge fear of failure that stops people from going after what they love, from living authentically. They're so scared of being seen as a loser that they play it safe, stay in their comfort zone, and miss out on all the incredible possibilities out there.
It's almost like that fear is holding us hostage. It's keeping us from our full potential.
Mm.
So what's the antidote to all this? What does Taoism offer as a solution?
Well, the Taoist approach emphasizes letting go of that need to control everything, to control every outcome. It's about recognizing that both success and failure are natural parts of life, and it's about finding peace in that acceptance.
So it's about going with the flow, not trying to fight against it all the time.
Exactly. Taoism teaches us to detach from that pursuit of reputation, all that recognition and validation we crave. It helps us see that those things are temporary and often based on totally random standards. It's about finding contentment and peace within yourself, regardless of whether other people approve or not.
That's a really different way of thinking. It sounds so freeing in a way. But before we dive too deep into that,
Yeah.
I think it's time for us to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore how this whole idea of embracing the loser label from a Taoist perspective might actually be the key to unlocking a more fulfilling and authentic life. Stick with us.
See you in a bit.
Okay.
Taoism really does offer a fresh perspective, doesn't it? It's like it turns everything we think we know about life upside down.
It does, especially when it comes to our ideas about, well, winning and losing.
Right. Like we were saying before, Taoism encourages us to let go of that need to control everything, to detach from chasing after recognition and validation. It's a huge shift in thinking.
It is, but there's something about it that feels really liberating. What I found particularly interesting in the article is this idea of actually embracing the loser label.
Oh yeah, in Taoism, being a loser, at least by society standards, can almost be seen as a good thing.
Wait, hold on. How can being a loser be a good thing?
Well, remember, we're talking about loser in terms of these expectations that society throws at us,
Yeah.
not some kind of personal flaw. Taoism suggests that when we accept the possibility of being seen as a loser, by those standards, we're actually freeing ourselves from those standards.
So it's like we're taking back our power. Instead of letting society tell us who we are, we're choosing to define ourselves on our own terms.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming our autonomy and living authentically, even if that means going against the grain. And when you think about it that way, embracing the loser label becomes an act of rebellion.
I like that. It's like saying, hey, society, you can keep your limited view of success. I'm going to create my own path to fulfillment.
Exactly. And that path might not lead to the traditional markers of success, wealth, fame, power, but it can lead to something way more meaningful. Inner peace, real connection, a life that's truly aligned with your values.
It makes me wonder, is all this striving for what we're told we should be doing for that success, is it actually making us less happy in the end?
It's a valid question. The article talks about how, ironically, our pursuit of happiness can sometimes lead us further away from it.
We can get so caught up in achieving and accumulating things, improving ourselves to others, that we completely lose sight of what brings us real joy.
Right. It's like we're so focused on the destination that we forget to enjoy the actual journey.
And Taoism reminds us to appreciate the present moment, to find those little joys in everyday life, to be content with who we are, not what we achieve.
Yeah, exactly. Taoism emphasizes aligning ourselves with the Tao, and one way to do that is through the concept of wu-wei.
Wu-wei, what's that?
It translates to non-action, but it doesn't mean just sitting around doing nothing.
Okay, good, because that didn't sound very appealing.
It's more about acting in harmony with the natural flow of things, rather than forcing or striving all the time. Think of it as effortless action moving with the current instead of against it.
Okay, I'm starting to get it.
It's about trusting your intuition, being present in each moment, and responding to situations with a sense of ease and grace.
So it's about trusting the process even when things feel uncertain or challenging.
Exactly. Which
Yeah.
I know can be super difficult in our culture that's all about hustling and constantly pushing forward. But the rewards can be really amazing.
So does this mean we should just ditch all ambition? Give up on setting goals? I mean, having goals can be a good motivator,
Right.
right?
Taoism isn't saying we should completely abandon ambition. It's about finding that balance, between striving for things and acceptance. It's about pursuing goals but with a sense of detachment, understanding that we don't have complete control over the outcome.
So it's more about the intention behind our actions than the result itself.
Right. It's about acting from a place of authenticity and alignment with the Tao rather than being driven by fear, ego, or the need for approval from others.
This is making me think about my whole approach to life. It seems like a much more peaceful and fulfilling way to be, but I imagine it takes a lot of practice to actually get there.
It does. It's a process of unlearning old patterns, challenging beliefs that we've held for a long time, and cultivating a new way of being in the world.
Right.
But it's so worth it.
After hearing all this, I'm really starting to see how embracing the loser label in this Taoist sense can be a path to more freedom and living a more genuine life.
It's about letting go of those expectations that society puts on us and stepping into your true power.
Okay, I'm sold. But how do we actually put these Taoist principles into action in our daily lives? How do we embrace being a loser and find that peace and freedom?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we'll explore next. We'll dive into some practical tips and strategies for shifting our perspective,
Yeah.
letting go of that need to control everything, and finding joy in the process no matter where it leads us.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? We've spent this whole deep dive talking about this idea from Taoism, embracing the loser label as a way to freedom. But how do we actually live that out, in our everyday lives?
It's a process, for sure. It's a journey. And
Right.
like any journey, you got to start somewhere. The first step, I think, is awareness. We have to recognize those societal pressures, those expectations that are shaping our thoughts and our feelings, even our actions.
So, like, are we making choices out of fear of being judged? Are
Exactly.
we chasing goals that we don't really care about just because they fit some definition of success that someone else made up?
Right. It's like we have to become loser detectives.
Yeah.
We got to investigate our own motivations, see where those fears of not measuring up are holding us back.
I like that, loser detectives. I'm going to write that down. Okay, so once we see those patterns, what do we do?
The article talks about practicing detachment from outcomes, and that's a big one.
Oh, yeah, letting go of control. That's a scary thought, to be honest.
I get it. We're so used to thinking that if we're not in control, things will fall apart. But detachment, it's not about being apathetic. It's not about giving up. It's about shifting our focus, from the end result to the process itself. It's recognizing that effort is important, but the outcome, well, that's often influenced by things outside of our control.
So instead of stressing about winning or losing, we focus on what we're learning, how we're growing along the way.
Right. It's about finding that enjoyment in the journey itself, no matter where it takes you. And this goes hand in hand with another big principle from Taoism, accepting what is.
Okay, so accepting that we can't control everything.
Yes. It's about acknowledging that life has its ups and downs. There will be wins and there will be losses, and that's okay. It's about making peace with the fact that life is unpredictable, finding a sense of calm in the middle of all the chaos.
It's funny when you put it like that, it actually sounds kind of relaxing, like
Yeah.
taking a deep breath and finally letting go of that need to control everything.
It can be incredibly freeing, just
Yeah.
letting go. And another practical tip, if you're looking for one, cultivate gratitude. When we focus on what we're grateful for, it helps us shift our perspective. We move away from that sense of lack and scarcity to a place of abundance and appreciation.
So it's like training our brains to see the good, even when things are tough, even when they don't go as planned.
Absolutely. And this all ties into another key idea from Taoism, interconnectedness. We're not just these isolated individuals struggling against the world. We're part of something much bigger, and everything is connected.
So even when we have those setbacks, when we experience failure, it's not the end of the world. It's just part of this bigger flow of life.
Exactly. And you know what? A lot of times, those setbacks can lead to amazing opportunities and growth. It's all about how we look at it. Imagine a world where you're not constantly chasing someone else's idea of success. A world where you're free to create your own path Embrace your imperfections and find joy right here, right now. That's the power of embracing the loser label.
Wow. This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools for dealing with life's challenges.
That's great to hear. And remember, this is a lifelong journey. We're going to have times when we fall back into old patterns, when those fears come creeping back in, when we find ourselves comparing ourselves to others.
It happens.
But the key is to keep coming back to these principles: detachment, acceptance, and gratitude. Keep practicing them.
Like we're building up our loser muscles, right?
Yeah.
We're building resilience.
We're learning how to find peace in the middle of all the craziness. And remember, embracing the loser label. It's not about giving up. It's not about settling for mediocrity. It's about breaking free from those limits that society puts on us so we can live a life that's truly authentic and fulfilling. It's about defining success on our own terms, in a way that aligns with our values and makes us happy.
So if society's definitions of success are so arbitrary, what does your definition of a fulfilling life look like? What would you pursue if you weren't afraid of being labeled a loser? That's something for all of us to think about as we go out into the world, embracing our inner losers and creating a life that is truly our own. Until next time, keep diving deep.